All right. Here we go. Hey, everyone. I am joined today by my friend Vinicius Lima, who is an assistant professor at Grand Valley State University in Michigan, right?
Yes, in
Awesome.
Allendale, Michigan. Yeah,
Allendale, Michigan. What part of Michigan is that?
it's West Michigan. It's 25 miles west of Grand Rapids, so
Okay. Okay.
that
Cool.
situates people a little better.
Yeah. Well, thanks for joining me. I'm looking
Hmm.
forward to learning more about you. Um, so I'm talking about folks' backgrounds and sharing this with my design students, with my marketing students, and I'm wondering just exactly when did you discover that you needed, not wanted, but maybe needed to be a graphic designer and then design professor? Can you talk a little bit about what your entry points were
Sure.
to the design field, to the design industry, and then also teaching?
Okay. Yeah. So um, my story is a little bit um, interesting, I'd say, because I have a degree in architecture first. That's
Okay.
my undergraduate training is in architecture, and I I took a design class then in in architecture school about presentation and like how to make graphics and stuff like that. So and I had this professor there, and so it was just this one class, and then it was fine. Then I took another class from her, and it was fine. All of those electives, and then I was moving along with my architecture degree and going then and there. And then I was about to graduate, uh, and this professor, she had moved to the University of Iowa. This was in Brazil, sorry. I forgot to
Mhm.
say that. So my professor who taught these classes about graphics and stuff, she moved to Iowa to teach design there. And and when I was about to graduate, she sent me an email saying like, well, if you ever wish to pursue a master's degree, I can offer you a scholarship and
Wow.
an assistantship if you'd like. So I at first I didn't want to do it. I was like, nah, I think I'm set. I'm pretty okay. I had a job lined up as an architect and everything, but I decided, oh, what the heck? The worst case scenario, I'll be there for a year, and if I don't like it, I can just come back and
Mhm.
restart. So, so I went and I moved from Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, to Iowa, and it was
Quite the shift, I'm sure.
yes, from like I don't know millions of people to 60,000. So to a college town, and it was me. It was and I enjoyed every minute of it. Essentially, that's when I discovered teaching because the my my scholarship was spending upon me being a teaching assistant. So
Mhm.
I would teach students basic design skills and other things that I knew, essentially helping the faculty sometimes on my own. And then over there, I would take some classes. I took classes in 3D design and graphic design. And then by the time I was graduating my master's, the market crashed. So
So 2008, 2009.
2008 was my set graduation year.
Okay.
Uh, I I was that cohort of people who were still getting and then back by then I had decided like I want to teach.
Yeah.
So I was that cohort of people who were looking for teaching positions, getting some leads and some positions, interviews and everything, and things were being cut because the economy was crashing as we were in front of us.
Mhm.
So I ended up staying another year in school from 2000. I stayed as an extra year, and then my university hired me later in 2009 to be a graphic design lecturer. And over there, I was in charge. That was the University of Iowa. Over there, I was in charge of teaching the digital and interactive
Hmm.
component of their curriculum. So I taught web design pretty actively for about 5 years. And then the job I currently have opened up in 2013. And I applied. It was a more stable position essentially.
Hmm.
And I've been here since. So now I don't teach just web design. I teach essentially the whole spectrum from the
Yeah.
beginning classes to the senior thesis. So yeah, it's a little bit
Cool.
different. Yeah.
So you got your start in architecture, and then you
Yeah.
migrated to design. And I found that this is not like an uncommon story. I've actually heard of a lot of architecture folks transition, not just from architecture to graphic design, but from like architecture to product design or architecture to interactive design. It seems like architecture provides a really solid foundational base for the other design disciplines.
Hmm. Yeah, I think so. I think my main uh, and now I'm trying to work mainly with user experience. So it's when I'm really seeing my architecture experience kind of really showing through
Hmm.
in a way, because architecture taught me how to think in systems and how all of these layers come together, and how
Right.
you need to make sure that you're like embracing perspectives and needs and all of this. So like when I moved that into design, it was pretty much very, very helpful.
Hmm.
And yeah, I think I don't regret my architecture training. It's a grueling degree. I mean, in Brazil, the degree in architecture takes 5 years. And
Wow. Okay.
yes, I actually took 5.5 because there was this one semester at my school that everyone that goes through it recommended us to split in half because of two really large projects we had to tackle. So I did that. And I mean, yeah, I don't know. I tell my students this all the time. Like I have the story that they usually have to take 15 credits, right? So I tell them this story that one semester when I was in school, I had to take 29.
Good Lord.
And,
Oh my
and,
God.
and they all look at me as like, they can't even fathom. Like, yeah, I was like, yeah, it's essentially 10 college courses in a semester. And
Wow.
yeah, that was the full-time degree in Brazil. So yeah, I think architecture is, I still appreciate it a lot. I don't practice it as much,
Hmm.
but I have an understanding of space that is pretty uh, different than everyone. I can look at things in 3 dimensions, and I can anticipate outcomes and things that will come up. And I have a good eye for planning and organizing and
Hmm.
the layering things together and seeing how one decision impact a bunch of others. So I think that was really helpful for me as a
And
designer.
and really to top all of that off, the human centeredness of all of those
Oh yeah.
skills and perceptions and perspectives. I mean, because if you're teaching interactive design, I mean, you have to be human centered. You have to. That is the core of which all of your work, you know, sort of shoots out, you know, for lack of a better phrase. So if you're designing interactive assets and they're not human centered, then they're not entirely effective,
Oh no,
right?
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yes. I mean, yeah, it's like, and I was remembering that the other day. I remember when I was an architect, we would have to do these projects on like, or renewing areas like
Hmm.
neighborhoods and stuff. So
Revitalization effort.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So our professors would always ask us to uh, interview folks, and that was the part we would hate the most because we were all like introverts and shy and everything. But like it just dawned on me like a few years ago that was like, that was exactly what I've been doing now. It's like it's user surveys and
Hmm.
interviewing and understanding context and everything. Like it didn't that, and that was 2002 or something like that. So
Right.
18 years ago. Yeah, but no, you're right. It just it has to be user centered, especially because people are living in your things, right? They have to breathe in there. They have to be healthy there. So
Right.
that's all of these implications that architecture needs to have.
Implications, I see that as just responsibilities.
Oh,
That's a lot to account for.
yeah.
So keeping all this in mind, you're teaching interactive design and you're having a good go of it. Now you're expanding out into the whole spectrum of the design sort of discipline in terms of teaching. Outside of, so I'm an interactive design teacher too. In
Okay.
fact, the entire time I've been teaching, 10 plus years, I've always taught interactive design. Now I've had opportunities to do classes on professional practice and then, foundation classes and stuff like that, which have been great. But, my sweet spot is the interactive section, right?
Mhm.
What kind of classes do you enjoy enjoy teaching that are not interactive?
Mhm. I I enjoy teaching the I enjoy teaching the beginning ones, like the
Okay,
very
so like the
basic.
intro classes.
Yeah, yeah. There's
Okay.
something about those that is it's interesting to see the students discovering design. Like they have everyone design is present everywhere, right? But
Hmm.
everyone has a notion of what design is about. But then when they come into a design class, they have some revelation that there's a lot more to it than just
Right.
uh, nice looking assets or like pretty fonts or stuff like this. There's this whole side. So it's interesting to see them like growing from that. And I also really enjoy the end. So when they are like about to graduate and they're working on, I mean, we have this class here it's a senior thesis class and they have to work on a project on their own for the whole semester. And
Hmm.
it's essentially like a one-on-one kind of thing. So it's like, it's good to see them, how far they've grown, but also like really thinking about different components of their projects. It's not like, how do you do their research? How do you uh, anticipate outcomes? How do business implications kick in to the project? How do you make sure you're considering sustainability and all of these bigger, larger questions that some of the design classes you have to go through may not embrace as much, like
Hmm.
typography or something. You can discuss this, but it's essentially, there are classes when you have to teach them just like how to make form work, right? So I think that's interesting to see the evolution in these two, the beginning and the end. So
When do you think that aha moment hits them? You've seen it, I've seen it. What class does that typically occur in, or what kind of project? I mean, or is it the thesis project? It could be a delayed response.
mhm. um, I don't know if there's a class that does it for everyone. I'd say it's somewhere in the middle when they are. I think that at least the way our program is currently set up, the first two classes are much more about understanding form and
Hmm.
communicating things visually. So the exercises and the assignments tend to be a little more abstract.
Right.
So that's and then at the end of the second class, there's that little hint of a design, quote unquote, project. So I think there's some of them start getting it there. Some of them will have their aha moment on their first layout class because
Hmm.
things seem a little more tangible and more uh, tactile and stuff like that. But
Experiential, really.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But some would even like you said, some only have it when they're about to graduate.
Terrifying. That's a
Yeah,
terrifying prospect. Oh
I
my
mean,
God.
I tell them that is just and they struggle, some of them, and they come to me and say, I don't think this is for me,
Hmm.
and then we have to sit down and discuss. And most of the time, it's just that they're going through that period of transitioning, and then it eventually hits them, and that would
Hmm.
happen too. Like that was pretty clear when I was teaching web design only, because I was teaching them. Well, I got that period when the designer should code or designer must code
Right.
time was in place. Like we didn't have prototyping tools,
Right.
we didn't have Figma or Sketch or anything like that.
Hmm.
So it was like hardcore Dreamweaver and blah blah blah. You know
Yeah.
those. So I had that problem, that revelation happen in that class, because as soon as we're essentially learning a new language, right?
Right.
HTML and CSS, and a lot of them were essentially going with the motions, but then toward the end of the semester they would start getting, it's like, oh, this is what this
Yep.
is doing. That realization was happening there.
Yep.
So I don't
That's
know if
great.
there's a class exactly, but it happens somewhere in the middle, not in the
Hmm.
beginning, and some are a little later. It happens at the end, and it's
Right.
fine. Yeah.
Yeah. Those students that are they're about ready to graduate and they just up and decide like, I hate this stuff. I don't ever want to do it again.
Oh,
I, it breaks my heart, right? I think any teacher would say that about their students in whatever discipline, but I usually try to tell them like, stay the course, get your degree, because statistically, I think more people are going into master's programs, and a master's degree is sort of the natural pivot point if you want to enter a new discipline or career track. On
mhm.
top of the fact that one of the things that I love the most about the design discipline is that it is applicable to so many different things. I mean, I've got marketing students with digital art backgrounds. I've got design students that are double majoring in marketing or business or something like that, or communications. So it's a really great transitional crossover
Mhm.
set of skills. So I tell them, stay the course, you'll be
Yeah,
fine. We're all figuring it out, no big
yeah.
deal. And
I think,
fortunately,
I mean, if I
yeah,
can add to that a
please,
little bit,
please.
um, I think design is such a blessed career in a way. Not blessed in terms of religion, but it's like the sense of it's the skill set that you develop as a designer is so interesting. Like, I mean, you learn how to visualize information in a way that no one else does. Like
Hmm.
you learn how to organize content in a way that no one else does.
Right.
You learn a whole new visual grammar. You learn how to embrace different perspectives and be inclusive. So you like all of these are so like, and when you see these articles about leadership and how to be a good leader and all of this stuff, is like this is everything that a designer does. Like there
Hmm.
is so I usually tell them, I tell my students, it's just like they may not enjoy the visual side of things as much. They may enjoy more of the research and thinking about things, and that's fine too, that's great. And they all have the ability to be a good thinker, and I think
Yes.
once you're a good thinker you can just guide your path and like develop a career out of
Hmm.
this, because everything
Absolutely.
else you can learn.
I had a student once who was an amazing design student. She got her degree, and then she's like, you know what? I'm going to go into nursing. Right? So it's like, wow, that's a real pivot. But the interesting thing about it is that she went into more of like a research-based track,
Okay.
or data analytics in nursing. So it was like a relatively new aspect to the nursing track, and she was able to take that
Yeah.
design thinking capabilities and apply it to what she was doing. So, to your point, you can really mold and shape that design background into new careers. So
Yeah.
while we're on that topic,
Uh-huh.
I know this is something that is very much of mine to myself, but probably to you as well. We have graduating seniors, right?
Mhm.
And they are entering a very unsure, unstable economy right now. Um, Things might get worse before they get better. And for our graduating students, we might be finding like some of them had jobs lined up and those jobs are being retracted,
Yes.
or prospects are now incredibly slim because job opportunities are being canceled in order to keep businesses flush and sustainable.
Mhm.
So can you talk about a little bit about what you're going through and what your students are going through and the advice that you're giving them
Mhm.
during this quarantine phase of our lives?
Yeah. Um, yeah, our students here are definitely starting to feel that. They have started applying for their jobs, and some of them have had interviews that now became emails saying like, sorry, we can't hire anymore, or stuff like that. So it's
Mm-hmm.
been it's been difficult to handle the in this case. I think this is a very unique case. It's not even, I wouldn't say it's even any close to the recession in 2008, because right now it's essentially we don't know
Right.
anything, and we do not know when and how things can get better, and we don't even know how much worse they will still get.
Mm-hmm.
So it's there's a lot of uncertainty there. I'm telling my students to, um, I don't know, rely on what they know. I think that's a good, uh, like, don't sell themselves short.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, to rely on what they know, uh, understand that their first job may not be their dream job,
Right.
and but it'll be something that they can keep the day-to-day logistics going. So like paying your bills and
Sure.
and eating and living and all of that, and then continue to work on their portfolios. And like, I mean, we have a really good system here in Grand Rapids that the public library has a subscription to LinkedIn Learning, so they can continue
Mm-hmm.
learning while they are there. Don't my main advice is like, this is hard and it may get harder. We still don't
Mm-hmm.
know, but they have to be a little bit proactive in developing a learning plan and continue to learn,
Yes.
continue
Yep.
making their portfolio, because the jobs will come back. We've all seen it,
Mm-hmm.
and I mean, in the end, they will come back. They probably will come back even better, because
Right.
like the once everything resumes, like the need for communication and improving experiences and everything, it's gonna be so crazy
Mm-hmm.
that they will be back in demand again. So it's just gonna take a little longer, and they just have to keep pushing through and
Yep.
continue developing their portfolio, their education. I've shared stuff for them in case they want to do work for nonprofits, or like looking for remote opportunities in different fields, or even like trying a different internship if they can find one. I don't know. There's some ways. I think revolving around continuing to learn is a good strategy right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with everything that you said. And I've been saying a lot of the same too. We're locked in our houses, we're under quarantine. The best thing, and perhaps the only thing you can do, is control what you can control. And in
Yeah.
this case, you can control what you're learning, and how you're applying that learning to your portfolio, to your career, to your interests, to your hobbies, whatever.
Hmm.
And so with respect to that, it is an exciting time, because getting that professional development when you're in your career, it's there, but a lot of it is the fact that you have to find it on your own. You have to put your own time in. You can't do it during the job. And even in cases like the one I'm in now, my university closed all of our events. I have very little to actually market. So this is one rare opportunity where I can spend an 8-hour day doing professional development, right? So yeah, I've definitely been encouraging LinkedIn Learning, and even looking at like certificate programs. Certificate programs are great with respect to, you know, those are people that are taking those may not have gone to graduate school before. So it's a good way to understand like, oh, this is kind of what graduate school is going to be like. And then they can consider applying to another degree, or, you know, sky's the limit. But nevertheless, when we come out of this and you have more skills than your competitors, you're going to be in a really great spot for jobs. You're going to be an attractive candidate. And I think to your point, when those jobs come back, and they will, but when they do, they will be better jobs because the market will have changed. The economy has changed. There will be specific skill sets that will be required that weren't before. So earlier when you said like you entered teaching web design when every designer knew how to code, I don't think it'll be like that at all. And you know, at a time for a good number of years, I had been practicing that. Like, you got to learn how to code. You may not be using it in your job, but you have to speak the language to make the work easier for your development team and everything. So I wouldn't be surprised, you know, coming out of this, if there's going to be more of an emphasis on human-centered, user-centered app prototyping, design-specific research, being more informed, more capable, and more curious designers. You know, I think print design will always be around. Let me preface that for the printers and the internet there. I love printing and I hope it never goes away. But I think one thing that this quarantine is proving is that we can rely on it less and still get our messaging across to an extent. So there will be more of an emphasis on hiring interactive designers.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, I think there's definitely once digital, like, I think there will be a bigger shift on how to make the digital experience as close to the physical as possible. So that's when the interactive designers will really be working, I would say. And there's, and like you said, I think we will change, we will be different, and like the industry will respond in a different way. So like you, I think print will still be there. And I think that's still, and it's great that it still is, but we have been seeing the shift to more digital experiences than print. There's data around that. So I don't know if now will be the time when the shift will really be abrupt and drastic and it's really gonna be the thing, but we will definitely see some change. I think there is there's opportunity there to really make these experiences a little better. I think we're all going to learn also from this. There's also a huge opportunity to learn from this in regards to education and teaching practice, right? I think like we're really trying to see, we're really trying to learn to get, I mean, myself as an instructor, I don't teach online classes, so I am learning with my students on what actually works.
Has that been a hard shift for you, by the way? Or how's the transition been?
In some things it has. It's making me realize how much I rely on the classroom as a communication space. So like I can talk to them in person, one-on-one. We have the physical experience of like, I can just go there and say, point at something and say like, this here is working, or this here is not really there. But when you're in an online setting, it almost seems like you have to me, it feels like I have to provide a lot more guidance and in written form, because my message is not as like the interpretation. There's a little bit more cognitive load, I think, to
Right.
understand what I mean in certain aspects. It's been a little difficult with classes that have more like this class I was talking about, the senior thesis one, because we are dealing with a group of students who are really struggling to find their future now.
Right.
So it's fine. They have to have I'm giving them their time to reflect on what they're going to be doing and their practice from now on. They need this time, because it's not just about pushing through work when there's a pandemic outside and
Right.
everything else is going. So like, but that class, out of the three that I usually teach, that class is probably the most challenging one to control at this point, because it was so loose before, and with online education, because of all of this, like it's a little hard to manage feedback and
Right.
deadlines and stuff like that. So,
And to that point, so morale is pretty much at an all-time low. I think that faculty and students and staff are basically like, this is a wash. This whole semester, the latter half of it at least, it's just a total wash. Let's just limp along and get through it. And so like the universities I work with, they've basically reflected that in the decisions that they make, which I think is a good thing. So at least at Pitt and Point Park, they've decided that if students get a passing grade, they can choose to get a pass grade or no credit. So either situation won't affect their GPA. So if, say, for example, you're an honors student and you got coronavirus, and somehow miraculously, like you got through it and you still passed the class, or, even if you didn't get the illness and like your morale was in the toilet, like you don't want that class to affect your GPA. So fortunately, there are measures in place like that are almost fail safes, which is good. But I when I first heard that, I'm like, oh, this is product management. So basically, the universities are saying our product is taking a hit. Those that deliver our product are taking a hit. We can't expect to deliver a high quality product to you at this point. So thusly the pass or no credit option, which is good because the student morale is bad, and I don't blame the students at all. I don't think anyone's in a really happy place at the moment. My philosophy on this is like, it's kind of a wash. We got to get through it as best we can. The most that I can do. So like, for example, my Pitt class, it's all practice based right now. So we have a client, we're designing a logo for a municipality, a whole logo system and brand campaign. And the students, the carrot at the end of the stick was, you get to present this to the mayor and his staff, and there's a winner, and then there may be an internship that results from it. And in fact, an internship is available to these students. And now I pulled the class and I said, all right, we have some options. We can do a Zoom-based presentation, but some of you are in different states. Some of you are in different countries. I have a student who's back in Barcelona. I don't know how the heck I'm supposed to make that happen, right?
Wow.
So we could do Zoom-based call presentations, or you could just turn in a pitch document and we call it a day, and then they choose one and you get your bragging rights, and that's it. So the students were just like, we would love to do the presentations, but considering the cultural diversity of the student body, at least in this class, and the geographic locations, it's just impractical. So as a result, I just said, turn in a report and a pitch document, we'll send it to them, and that's fine. So I let the students inform me on what they were comfortable with. And
Mm-hmm.
in doing so, I think they felt like they were heard, and as a consequence of that, empowered to move forward on the project. So it's trying to keep their morale going a little bit.
Yeah.
And then I'm just trying to ground everything in as much practical teaching as I can. So it's like, all right, I want to spend time on ideologies and platitudes and philosophies behind marketing and business and design. But frankly, you people are graduating and you don't have any patience for it. I wouldn't have patience for it. So here, we're going to do these calls, and I'm going to give you grounded practical advice as much as I can, because at the end of the day, you have to take care of yourself physically and mentally, especially now when you're locked in your house. And there are bigger things going on than, learning something you might not apply.
Yeah, I used to joke with my students sometimes before the pandemic that I would always tell them that design is great. I love design. But design is not brain surgery. So no one would actually, like, the implications around design can be drastic depending on the project, but most of the time, not exactly. So when life gets in the way, it's really important to make sure that we take care of our lives first, because deep down, if our lives are in a good space, design does not exist, and there's no need for design to exist. So I think it depends on a lot of them taking care of themselves. I did like your approach to, like, giving them a little bit more decision power over things. Over here, we have a similar system. Like, the students could request to have a class to just get the credit versus the grade and all of that stuff. But we did discuss a few opportunities about the projects. There are the senior thesis and stuff like this. We're still actually grappling with this and seeing what's the best way to celebrate their accomplishments and everything, and give them something. And in a way, there's also, I think, I don't want to sound presumptuous saying this, but it seems like giving them something that kind of brings a small level of normalcy to their lives at this point can sometimes be helpful. Like, I don't know if it's, like, sometimes having someone that they can talk to and discuss things that are non-related to others, like, it can be a way for them to cope with everything else. So, like, knowing that they have a class and the class is there and they can work at their own pace. That sometimes, I've seen some students saying, like, that this has happened and this has helped them, knowing that they have class to keep going and coping well. As I've seen the opposite as well. I've seen most of them, like, are saying, like, we can't really, we're not really functioning at this point. And I'll be honest, I told them I wasn't very functional either. I mean, there's a lot to process. And when there's a lot of that to process psychologically and physically and everything else, design will take a hit, and we will acknowledge that, and we will get better. We will improve when we can.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, I can't think of a better way to end on that note, but I would be remiss if I did not ask this. So for our students that are graduating, they have to have their portfolios ready. I think there's more of a premium emphasis on, or priority emphasis, on digital portfolios now. Can you kind of give me your 101 on the best, on what you believe is the best portfolio execution, print and digital?
Okay, sure. I like seeing the portfolios that tell me the story of everything. So it's not just your personal story, but it's also the story of each assignment. I don't mean a lot of writing in this case. I know some students may find that as a they may struggle with writing, but a project that's very well documented. I mean, I'm a very I'm a very nosy person, so I like to know everything. So when I look at someone else's portfolio, I want to know, like, why did you choose this? Why is this the solution? Like, what were you trying to do here? I mean, I know there's a lot of portfolios that thrive on their looks and things look great and they're polished and everything, but sometimes not knowing the thinking and the background for things just gives me no substance whatsoever.
Right.
So, I mean, we can all, like, nowadays the software is so powerful that everyone can whip up a pretty decent graphic, but the thinking behind it, the software doesn't have. It has to be you.
That's right.
So, and the only way to translate that thinking is through your portfolio. So it's how you document it, it's how you talk about the work, it's how you present the constraints, and if you have metrics and all of this stuff. And so my advice would always be to walk through each project, beginning, middle, and end, instead of just the end. So like, even if it's just a poster, like you explain, like, what was the prompt of the poster? What was the main message? What was your overall concept? And then how did it become a poster thing, instead of just, here's a poster, it looks really cool. So yeah, I think that would be one thing to consider. I would also try to look at the best way possible to document your work in context. So if it's a print piece, like, make sure that you have photographs of people actually interacting with it. If you have a digital piece, perhaps recording your screen moving along the website, or making small animations showing how the motion actually works. If you have, let's see, branding work, make sure you're talking about the research. Like, you probably did some strategy level thinking. So like, what's the background? Like, who are the audience for this? Like, what are some of its competitors that you're foreseeing, and all of this, because this all informs design, and it's not just about their looks. I think a website, in terms of that, for a good website, I think everyone agrees on that. Like, the cleanest the website, the better.
Right.
Make your work shine and make yourself shine. The portfolio too. Some people are more strict about printed portfolios. Then they want everything to look very similar. I don't necessarily. I almost like try to approach my students' portfolios as if it's like a mini case study of everything.
Yep.
So yeah, so I don't have a preference between print and digital myself. I do see the ease and the convenience of a digital portfolio. I mean, I can look at somebody else's portfolio on my phone and make the decision there. But in some cases, it doesn't really, the digital doesn't allow itself to. Like, some works are so tactile and everything that you gotta have a printed book, to show.
Beautiful.
All right.
Well, thank you so much.
Sure.
You hit so many points, accurately. And I really appreciate your time and insight. And hopefully we'll do this again sometime soon. And
Absolutely.
especially we'll check in after graduation to see how things are panning out. If they are, we still might be on lockdown. But hang in there, stay safe, and We'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thank you.